All right, so everybody knows who Dr. Fauci is and what COVID-19 and the pandemic and the vaccine did. Either way, whether you believe the official narrative of what happened or what the conspiracy says happened. Today in Web, actually, they just dropped the COVID-19 files, at least the stuff that Tulsi Gabbard just publicly published. I asked Web, hey, can we just take a little deep dive and just give me some information about Dr. Fauci and how he's connected to the files that were just dropped? And you're not going to believe what I just found. So Dr. Fauci, bro. He was an American doctor. Every evening for months, Anthony Fauci stood at the podium and told us what to do. 6 feet apart, wash your hands, trust the science. And a lot of us did. We put his face on mugs and t-shirts and made him a household god like Saint Fauci. Everyone just worshiped the things he said and just followed unwillingly, just with blind faith that a doctor or a government official would never lie to us. He's the one who would tell us when it was safe to even hug our parents again. But there was another Dr. Fauci behind that podium, behind those hearings, in a secure facility where visitor logs go missing. This is where the story that the declassified files will tell. Let's see here. It begins with money, like American money, taxpayer money, approximately 600,000 of it rooted through a New York-based nonprofit called EcoHealth Alliance at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a Chinese lab that handled some of the most dangerous coronaviruses on the earth. A Chinese lab that handled some of the most dangerous coronaviruses on Earth. The research was managed by Peter Daszak, the president of EcoHealth, who in 2018 wrote a proposal describing the work to sequence the spike protein, reverse engineer them, to conduct binding assays and insert them into the SARS-CoV backbones to infect humanized mice and access capacity to cause SARS-like disease. Wow, that seems pretty intentional to me, bro. I don't know about y'all, bro. Proposal was first sent to DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. DARPA rejected it as potentially dangerous virus work. Well, a good thing. But Daszak took the same proposal to a different agency, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, headed by Dr. Anthony Fauci, and Dr. Anthony Fauci approved the grant. So DARPA said no, but Fauci, he said yeah. Bro, the proposal named a Chinese virologist named Shai Zhenghai to lead the work on creating a vaccine to be sprayed on bats. Okay, maybe there's a link. That's where the bat origin came from. She has denied the lab had any role in the origins of COVID-19, but she is known in scientific circles as the Batwoman of Wuhan. That's kind of insane, bro. What the shit? Now here's where we talk about the paper that wasn't supposed to exist. In 2017, 2 years before the pandemic, scientists at Wuhan Institute of Virology published a paper describing experiments that combined coronavirus spike proteins to make them better at affecting human cells. Rutgers microbiologist Richard Ebright called his work unequivocal gain-of-function research. Dr. Fauci would later tell Congress that the NIH that the NIH has not never or does not now fund gain-of-research function at the Institute of Virology in Wuhan. Dang, sure looks like you lied, buddy. You could also, if you're here watching this now live on YouTube or Twitch, or seeing this later, you could just affirm everything I could always just knew from the beginning and more, that this was a psyop and it was man-made and it was an orchestrated thing, and you could just kindly just comment, fuck Dr. Fauci. But the definition he was using was a 2014 federal one, a definition so narrow that multiple scientists noted it allowed de facto gain-of-function research to bypass safety protocols. The question wasn't whether the research was dangerous, it was whether the word gain-of-function fit inside of the box. Okay, we're going to talk about the Marine who blew the whistle. And yet again, here we are. We just fucking hate and love those redacted black boxes. But in August 2021, a U.S. Marine Corps major named Joseph P. Murphy, working inside DARPA's Biological Technologies Office, sent a memo to the Pentagon Inspector General. His conclusion was stark. SARS-CoV-2 was an American-created recombinant bat vaccine, or its precursor virus, he wrote. It was created by an EcoHealth Alliance program at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Dang, see, that's kind of crazy, right? They lied to us straight to our face, and now we have proof. A major, bro. It's not no punk, bro. It's not no fucking little boy in the fucking army, bro. It's a major, bro. From the Marine Corps. He was working inside of DARPA's office, dude. That's insane, bro. Let's keep going. Murphy explained that the virus was likely a live vaccine that escaped from the Chinese lab before it could be engineered into a less dangerous state. The virus had been designed, he said, to be aerosolized so it could effectively infect bats in caves. He dated the initial escape to August 2019, 4 months before the world knew anything was wrong. That's fucked up, bro. He also revealed that Pentagon officials had placed the unclassified EcoHealth Alliance proposals inside a top secret file within DARPA, the concealment that was itself part of a whistleblower complaint. A group called Drastic, the decentralized radical search team investigating COVID-19, had independently researched the same conclusion about the lab leak. This collection of scientists and sleuths broke open the lab leak hypothesis into the mainstream, Murphy wrote. The missing soldier joints. What does that mean? On a Friday night in early 2020, a group of scientists called Fauci directly, they had been examining the genome of the novel coronavirus. And they had noticed something deeply strange. The virus contained what they called improbable mutations, specifically what's known as the furin cleavage site, a molecular feature that makes a virus better at infecting human cells. The scientists described it as a 10-step process where we have sequences from step 1 to 6 and from step 10. But the missing steps, 7 to 9, the virus seemed to have a feature that looked designed, a molecular architecture that nature would not easily produce. Damn, homie. In high school, you was the man, homie. What the fuck happened to you? What's up? You still here with me, bro? I'm pretty sure, just saying, bro. I'm pretty sure that's just obvious, right? I don't know. What do you believe? Do you believe, bro? Seems like it's pretty obvious, bro, that the government knew exactly what the fuck this was. 2 experts on a subsequent call said the sequences were natural. The rest said they were unsure. On the same call, it was noted that WIV had been working on gain of function of HAC2 receptor binding. That is the specific lock and key mechanism that viruses uses to break into human cells. What the shit? I didn't know any of this shit. I'm just being honest with you. Like, I didn't know what gain of function, like, obviously, if you were here and listened to me ask Perplexity, I thought it had to do something that they, like, research to make better vaccines, which would just affirm what I thought about the COVID vaccine and the virus. But I learned that it's not. It's like gain of function means it gives the cells or the virus or the bacteria or whatever the gain of function research is on an additional function. And it looks to me from what the files I've been reading with you live right now, as well as recording this for people seeing this later, gain of function for this specific virus was that it would be able to break through human cells so it could bind to our cells easier, making it so that the virus allegedly seems to that it would spread faster. I can't tell you what to believe. You could let me know what you think if you wanted to up in the chat. You know what I'm saying? It just helps the algorithm every time you comment something, hit the like button on the live stream or seeing this later, whether it's on X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Okay, here we go. The Lancet letter and the orchestration. In February of 2020, as the world was just grasping the scale of what was happening, a letter appeared in the medical journal, The Lancet. Signed by 27 prominent scientists, it condemned conspiracy theories suggesting that COVID-19 does not have a natural origin. You know what I mean? And then they were just like, hey, motherfuckers, you better freaking trust the experts. Trust the scientists. The letter was organized by Peter Daszak, the exact same man whose organization was the conduit for NIH funds to the Wuhan lab. Got him. Fauci, the documents show, quietly worked behind the scenes to cast doubt on the Wuhan lab leak hypothesis in 2020 and was in direct communication with Daszak during this period. In one email sent to Fauci in April of 2020, an EcoHealth executive thanked him publicly for stating that scientific evidence supports a natural origin of the coronavirus. Fauci later told CNN that that email was being misconstrued. Dang, bro. I think it was being misconstrued, if I'm being just 100% honest with you, bro. We already should know that. If you're still here, you're probably just like me and just think the same stuff that I did, that it was a PSYOP simultaneously, population control, allegedly, conspiratorially, or maybe it's real. I don't know. I'll just preface everything that you see on this stream, every stream prior, and every stream further. I'm a kook. I wear a tinfoil hat, bro. I got a tinfoil castle, bro. I believe in Bigfoot. So you can't take anything I say as 100% fact. You got to do your own research. And that's why I try to do it like right here. I'm literally pulling all this information from the files that Tulsi Gabbard just leaked about the biolabs, bro. I know you've heard about it, potentially seen the video of her even talking about it that kind of looks AI, but this is just from them, bro. So you can make up your own decisions. I'm just providing information about the files that were dropped. Thanks to web, it makes it a lot easier than having to go to some link or some government website repeatedly over and over clicking that link. I can just ask a question and it pulls it up for me theweb.io. You should download it if you like to do research like this. The letter was used as a cudgel. Anyone who raised the lab leak theory, any scientist, any journalist, any politician, was accused of spreading conspiracy theorists. You saw that as well, bro, all over the news. Don't listen to the conspiracy theorists. They were like talking about the anti-vaxxers, bro. Daszak himself had been recorded in 2016 describing his Chinese colleagues manipulating coronavirus spike protein to make them more virulent. But the Lancet letter was cited as the final word of settled science, and it was echoed at the highest levels of the U.S. government. Seems like a psyop, bro. A money grab. Get everyone sick and then fund and pay for the medicine that didn't actually cure anybody. And then there was a CIA briefing. In early 2020, Anthony Fauci began visiting the CIA. According to a memo circulating within the agency in December 2023, Fauci was not recorded on the visitor logs, as if he'd slipped through a side door. Senator Rand Paul, in his interview document, stated that 7 CIA scientists voted 6-1 to say it came from a lab, and then they reversed by their to say that it came from a lab, and then they were reversed by superiors. The obvious question, though, captured in internal intelligence emails was, did Dr. Fauci influence the superiors, bro? On June 4th, 2021, Fauci briefed CIA analysis via secure video teleconferences on the COVID origin analysis. During that briefing, he steered the conversation. He recommended the intelligence community contact specific scientists, all of whom have advocated for features of the virus as they judge to be consistent with the natural origin. Of course, just redactions, bro. He pointed them to a Tulane paper he described as clear indication of natural origins and discouraged drawing firm conclusions about a lab link. Crazy. It just seems a lot more coordinated than it might have seemed, right? Seems like it was pretty a coordinated event. You know what? And to be 100% honest with you, can we just hold Dr. Fauci accountable, bro? You know, so many people that were implicated, but can we just get, if connections to the vaccine and Bill Gates, and there is obvious connections that Dr. Fauci helped coordinate at least part of this. Jeffrey Epstein is to sex trafficking as what COVID is to Dr. Fauci, right? At least that's what I believe. Maybe you believe the same thing. An NCS official facilitated the National Security Council was there, setting the stage. After the briefing, CIA officers noted interest in a second following-on briefing for Fauci in person. On March 2026, an internal ODNI email chain captured a raw, uncensored reaction from inside the intelligence community, forwarding a 2020 NIH blog post by Francis Collins that argued for natural origins. One official wrote, "The IC took direction straight from NIH, the people that funded the Wuhan lab, a complex web of money and politics influencing analysis." That was an intelligence professional writing internally, connecting the dots in real time. Senator Rand Paul, in a Fox News interview contained in the files, offered a chilling hypothesis about the vaccine. "I think they developed a coronavirus," Paul said. "They inserted this cleavage site in to make more infectious to humans. And then they had a vaccine early on, because I think that they were developing a vaccine against COVID, and then COVID got out." Crazy. That's a senator saying that stuff, bro. Senator Rand Paul. You didn't hear it from me, but you did hear it from me, but then you heard it from me, and then you heard it from a senator. So a senator works for the government, so he said it. Must be true. That's what they want us to believe. The government is we have to just believe and trust the government, bro. And the scientist who developed it, Paul added, a man named Dr. Zhou Yusin, died mysteriously 2 months after the development of the virus. He fell from a tall building in Beijing. Sheesh, seems like they always just die mysteriously, bro. Doesn't it seem like that to you, bro? The timelines here are worth sitting with. Operation Warp Speed delivered a vaccine in less than a year. That's something that has never been done before. Something that was hailed as a miracle of modern science. But if the documents are to be believed, the research that produced the vaccine was built on years of gain-of-function work at the very lab where the virus must and may have escaped from. The NIH funding research at WIV to study bat coronavirus and the mRNA technology used in the vaccines relied on understanding the spike protein, the same spike protein that Daszak's proposal said they would reverse engineer and modify. That's crazy, bro. The vaccine was the escape, or the escape was in service of the vaccine. Either way, the two are impossible to separate. Do you agree, bro? I remember then, bro, seeing lots of people that were like on the and that were on social media and everyone talking about it, getting canceled and shit. I only saw the tail end. I was in prison for the actual lockdowns, but I remember getting out and it still being applicable, bro. And it's just crazy. Like it seemed anyone who had any sort of who was showing any dissent of the official narrative, it's just like we've seen repeatedly since then, actually, is that the news is just like almost like they've put a memo out and all of a sudden it's just like every single freaking newscaster or news anchor on the news on every channel in every single major city is just like literally regurgitating same phrases and shit. You know? Or no? I don't know. Now, through all of this, bro, the mandates came down. The CDC under Rochelle Walensky said, if you are vaccinated, you are protected and you can enjoy your Memorial Day. If you are not vaccinated, our guidance has not changed for you. You remain at risk of infection and you still need to mask and make other precautions. Dang, bro. Who remembers, bro? I just want to say shout out. I hope all of the children who spent a portion of some really crucial years of their life where development and is really crucial, and they just walked around the planet and every human that they saw had a mask on their face, and so they were neglected. They weren't allowed to see human emotion. Do you understand what that could potentially do to a toddler or like a kindergartner's not being able to see people smile or laugh or get upset? How do you think that they understand their own emotions? This shit really, not only did it kill tons of people on both ends with the virus and the vaccine, but it changed so much for so many people that we might not even have seen or get to see until the future, the repercussions of what that did to a kid. And those who questioned the virus, who simply asked where it came from, were censored. Facebook had a policy of taking down posts claiming that COVID-19 was man-made. In May 2021, the company reversed that policy, stating, in light of ongoing investigations into the origins of COVID-19 and in consultation with public health experts, we will no longer remove the claim that COVID-19 is man-made from our apps. Dang. The reversal came only after the Wall Street Journal reported that 3 scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology had been hospitalized in the fall of 19 with symptoms consistent with COVID-19 weeks before the world knew that the virus had ever even existed. The censorship regime didn't fall because the truth won. It fell because the evidence became too loud to ignore. Amen, brother. Can I get an amen, brother? The whistleblower who filed the complaint about Fauci's false testimony to Congress, the one alleging intelligence reporting contradicting Dr. Fauci's testimony that no gain-of-function research occurred at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, went through the acting inspector general of the intelligence community. The acting IG reviewed it and decided it did not constitute an urgent concern. The complaint was transmitted to Congress anyways, but it was effectively neutered. It sat in a drawer while Fauci continued to testify, continued to deny, and continued to stand behind that podium. In October 21, an email circulated inside the intelligence community with the subject line that said, everything. NIH now says WIV did gain a function. The response from a senior official, yes, and this and the lobsters. The meeting today will be key to figuring out a way forward. Right there. This and the lobsters. What the fuck does that mean? If you know what that means or what he's talking about, and you could drop it in the comments, I don't know what it means. But he did say figuring out a way forward, not investigating the truth, not holding people accountable, figuring out a way to manage the fallout. On February 3rd, 2020, just days after the World Health Organization declared a global health emergency, Fauci presented to an expert meeting on the origins of the novel coronavirus. The meeting was titled Rapid Response for Assessment of Data Needs for 2019 and COVID, or COV. The agenda lists Fauci as the NIH NIA speaking from 2:15 to 2:25 p.m. The meeting objective was to assess what data is needed to understand the evolutionary origins of COVID-19 and more effectively respond to the outbreak and the resulting misinformation. Seems crazy, bro, if you really think about it, dude. Like, how is it that how come there was, you just were so good at the propaganda back then, bro? You think that was one? Are you like me, bro? I genuinely believe 9/11 woke up some boomers. You know what I mean? It wasn't big enough to wake up everybody, and more people have woken up then and then come to the realization of what 9/11 was. But I really feel like COVID drastically forced everyone who was open-minded to hear different perspectives from people that they don't necessarily agree with, and then gather their own information and move forward with the information that's available to them and then come to their own conclusion by doing enough research, as well as on research not just like research of reading words. It's like literally research of hearing talk about it from the same perspective of you, and as well as the opposite perspective of you. You have to give it the other side, bro. We have to be able to have these conversations about really serious stuff where the propaganda, the matrix, the programming, whatever you want to call it, really affected and really did brainwash a whole bunch of people, bro. There's a lot of us waking up, and the only way that we can wake up the masses is to have conversations about it. Dead ass. Can you concur? You can just say, I concur, you kind gentleman. This thing is, though, where they talked about misinformation is that they've been worried about misinformation the whole time, meaning like the lab leak theory. Because February 3rd, 2020, before most Americans had ever even heard of the virus, there was that meeting. Now, what about the 2012 letter? In 2012, 8 years before the pandemic, Fauci wrote a letter to the microbiology journal MBio advocating for gain-of-function experiments. In it, he laid out a hypothetical scenario. Consider this hypothetical scenario an important gain-of-function experiment involving a virus with serious pandemic potential is performed in a well-regulated, world-class laboratory by experienced investigators, but the information from the experiment is then used by another scientist who does not have the same training and the facilities and is not subject to the same regulations. In an unlikely and conceivable turn of events, what if that scientist becomes infected with the virus, which leads to an outbreak and ultimately triggers a pandemic? What the shit? Isn't that exactly what happened? I'm pretty sure earlier in this little clip right here, we just read some stuff about how when Facebook changed their policies was when some people in China got infected with symptoms similar to COVID-19 way before the world even knew what COVID-19 was. It also says that the Children's Health Defense in an October 2020 letter to Congress pointed out the eerie accuracy of Fauci's hypothetical. These are not our words, they wrote, but rather they are the words of Anthony Fauci, director of NIAID, in a 2012 letter to the microbiology journal of MBio, according for gain-of-function experiments. Today, questions about the origins of COVID-19 have largely been dismissed without answers. We believe Dr. Fauci laid out a scenario 8 years ago that deserves a full investigation today, particularly when you consider that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was doing the very type of research set forth in Dr. Fauci's hypothetical scenario. All right, so the final report. On December 12th, 2023, a 520-page final report from the White House Select Subcommittee concluded that COVID-19 was likely emerged from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. The report criticized the response, the U.S. government's handling of relief funds, mask mandates, and vaccine development. It also identified widespread corruption, misinformation, and obstruction of its investigation by the government officials, researchers, and organizations, including Dr. Fauci's EcoHealth Alliance and the Biden administration. The committee listed 5 conclusions. Are you ready for the conclusions? The committee concluded that the virus possesses a biological characteristic that's not found in nature. All COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans, unlike previous pandemics with multiple spillover events. Wuhan is home to China's foremost SARS research lab, with a history of gain-of-function research at inadequate biosafety levels. The WIV researchers were sick with COVID-like virus in the fall of 2019, months before the wet market outbreak. By nearly all measures of science, if there were evidence of a natural origin, it would have already surfaced. So what does all of this mean, bro? Let's just say this is a story, and let me tell you what this story is, because it's not a real simple one, bro. It is not a story of a Chinese bioweapon. There is no evidence in the files that China intentionally weaponized the virus to harm the West. It is not a story of a deliberate cover-up in the sense of men in the room deciding to lie. It is way more insidious than that, bro. It is a story of a system that was engineered to produce a specific outcome. Fauci controlled the funding. He approved the grant that DARPA had rejected. Fauci controlled the definition. He chose the narrowest possible reading of gain of function so that the research could not proceed without oversight. Fauci controlled narrative, said. He commissioned and edited a paper saying the virus was natural while the scientists who wrote it told him in private they believed that it came from a lab. Fauci controlled the intelligence community. He briefed the CIA without appearing on visitor logs. And then he recommended scientists who shared his preferred conclusion. And when it was all over, when the masks came off and the mandates lifted, over 1 million Americans were dead, Fauci continued to deny it. He denied it before Congress. He denied it in the press. He denied it at the NIH. He denied that the NIH ever funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan. Even as the internal ODNI official was writing, the IC took straight direction from the NIH, the people that funded the Wuhan lab. The NIH now says WIV did gain of function research. The intelligence community knows. The congressional report says it. The whistleblower said it. The Marine Corps major said it. The drastic team said it. The scientists who called Fauci on the February night in February 2020 on Friday, the ones who saw the improbable mutations, the missing steps 7 through 9, every single one of them knew it, bro. The question that remains is not what happened, obviously. The question is, who will be held accountable for the trust that was sold, the questions that were suppressed, the lives that were lost while the evidence was hidden in plain sight? And until today or yesterday, when Tulsi Gabbard and Webb dropped this information, June 18th, 2026, it all remained unanswered. Hopefully I was able to assist you in some information that maybe you didn't know. You hit the follow or like or subscribe button, bro. I just want to say I appreciate y'all for being here. What's up? Team Humans in the house. Arrest Dr. Fauci.